What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Pod Scum. I am, of course, your host, Reckless Rex Ruger. That, of course, is the Freddie Mercury puppet. We are back with another amazing episode. You're looking at the smoldering good looks, the luscious long blonde locks, and you're saying, I know that face. Yes, you do. I am the one and only, of course, love child of one Diamond David Lee Roth Jr. Search your feelings. You know it to be true. And I'm going to validate it right now by giving myself a look, my favorite view. Yep. Of course, DNA testing will conclusively prove this year, my attorneys have assured me, what we already know if we've been tapping into Pod Scum for any amount of time, that I am the son of glam, the front man for the band, adored by millions of fans, the peanut butter to your jam, Mr. Wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, wop, bop, loo, bop, a wop, bam, bam, shazam, hot damn. Whew. Feels good to get that off my chest, folks. Yes, that's right. Diamond David Lee Roth has not acknowledged me yet, but he will very soon. He will have no choice. Just recently went to see him at the Turning Stone Resort Casino. Was not able to have a teary-eyed father-son reunion like I had hoped. But, hey, the struggle goes on. The DNA testing, the litigation, all of it, the proceedings, they all go on. And we will get some resolution very soon. This I have been assured of. And that's good news. That's good news. And you know what? I'm not asking for a lot, folks. Just listen. Every kid wants a father. That's all. And maybe a little bit of that Panama money, but not much. I'm not greedy. Anyway, my guest is here, so let's get down to it and chop it up with him. I'm excited. You're excited. We're excited. Let's get down to it. And there he is, JAMISON.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. How are you, man?
Good. I forgot I was going to put my earbuds in here. Let's see.
That's okay. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. So how is everything?
Pretty good. Pretty good. Yeah. How about you? What's going on?
I'm good, man. Catch us up to speed on which you're. I hate to always go back to Alan Frog, which I think most people certainly associate you with, and you must get that all the time.
Yeah, I don't mind it because
you've leaned into it.
The biggest thing I've done, you know, you know, so people are really moved by that movie and by those characters and stuff. So I appreciate it, you know.
Why do you think, man, looking back on a movie that's almost 40 years old, why do you think it's resonated with people? I'm glad you brought that up.
Let's see here. Wait one sec.
Because I'm curious to get your opinion on like exactly why you think it's resonated with people. Because you know, I certainly do agree. And you know, of course, me being 52 years old, being a child of the 80s, you know, I have my reasons why I love it and have such a fondness for it, man. But why do you think it resonates even now to this day?
Okay, so I think it's a few things. I just plugged my earbuds in.
Yep.
Can you hear me? Cool.
Yep.
I think it's a few things. We get this question a bit on like panels and things like that. And we get to hear other people, like, you know, get to hear Jason Patrick and, you know, Alex Winter and Billy Wirth and, you know, all these guys talk about, you know, what they think is the reason why it's had so much longevity or success, you know, multi-layered success, you know, across generations and stuff. And I think the main thing is that, like Joel, the director, was really intent on not winking to the camera at all and not making some cheesy some cheesy vampire movie, you know.
Right.
He wanted to like this thing I heard recently, I think it was Jason who said this, that the casting director was surprised that he wanted Diane Wiest for the mom. And because they were like, why would she be interested in doing a teenage vampire movie? And it's like, clearly he had a vision for the fact that this is a family and that the success of our, you know, sort of fear and stuff about what's happening, it kind of comes from the fact that we want them to survive as a family. You know, we believe in them as a family. And so I think there's something to that. I think it's really moving. I think that in the midst of all of it, it's this metaphor for being a teenager, and, you know, therefore it's like they managed to, with the family, like Diane and Corey and Jason and Grandpa, they managed to keep it like it's just a family going through stuff,
Right.
Yeah. So I think that's a big part of it.
Right. It's like, hey, our son's turned into a vampire. No big deal. We're going through some stuff here.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's sort of like, when Diane Wiest is like, we're gonna things are gonna be different when school starts. It's
Right.
like you got no concept of what's going on here, Mom.
Right.
But that's what a teenager feels. You
Right.
you don't understand me.
Right. And
So
so were you reluctant at all, hesitant at all? I know it took years for a sequel to be made. First of all, were you happy they were going to make a sequel? Were you excited to be involved? Were you reluctant that sometimes sequels can not live up to the hype of the original?
yes, all of those things. But mostly I really wanted there to be a sequel. I think it could have been great if they followed it up with a sequel. Certainly there was enough action on Jason Patrick and Jamie Gertz. Those guys survived. Even if you couldn't find a way to bring the other guys back,
Right.
it's like. So I think that that and Joel I kept meeting with Joel. Where like I'd have lunch with Joel and he'd be like, "Oh, everybody's loving it. Everybody's talking about we're going to do a sequel. The frogs are going to come back. We're going to bring Chance back," and and that happened a couple times, and then it just never came to be, which was it was a bummer. It would have been cool to have like earlier in my career have that sequel come in.
Right.
But of course there's the feeling of like, yeah, it's not going to be as good. I think on the two Corey's show, the thing that I think I got a big laugh from the audience because the Coreys were like, well, we would only do it under certain conditions, and I was like, I would do it regardless of anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like, let's be realistic. Can we be realistic here?
Now, what about the rumor? And I guess anything that was ever cool or exciting back in the 80s, seems to kind of come full circle. I have heard rumors about a reboot remake here in 2025. Have you heard these rumors?
So yeah, I mean, I haven't heard in 2025. I haven't heard, but we were hearing for like years. There were years where I think they even filmed some stuff for a reboot.
Yeah.
And as far as I know, it didn't come together. And of course, I feel like a little bit like, yeah, you can't beat
Right.
the original.
Sure.
But at the same time, I want them to succeed. I believe in the franchise, but it didn't happen. But there's a musical, Lost Boys musical coming to Broadway.
Really?
Yeah. It's a pretty trippy thing. G Tom, Cry Little Sister guy, G Tom Mack.
Yeah.
He has been telling me a little bit about it because Cry Little Sister is going to be used in the musical, I think.
Yeah.
Or at least they were talking to him about it. He got involved in it. So it sounds kind of cool. And I mean, so that kind of stuff, and of course, I mean, I want to do a Frog Brothers show. And we had I thought we had a little momentum to try to get it going. It would be really cool, but it hasn't happened so far. So,
what would that entail? What would that look like? A Frog Brothers show? So would that involve you and Feldman?
That's what I think. I think that because I've talked to him about it, and it's like I would sort of see it that it's a sort of a light horror comedic kind of but sometimes intense horror series about our sort of trying us as brothers, older, as at the ages that we are, and trying to navigate life and still be vampire hunters, and and what does that mean now? You're right.
Yeah. I didn't think it would work when they did I think I was hesitant at first, when they came out with Cobra Kai, because you're thinking, here they're going to have these guys, Ralph Macchio and Billy Zabka all these years later, but it worked. It worked amazingly.
Right. Totally. Yeah. And I think Cobra Kai is like the model for it in a way. It's like, this could be another one of those. So I think that, there's a lot of different things I think about that. These days, I think I always used to hear stories about like, oh yeah, they pitched it and then they bought the script and they wrote the script. It's like, it doesn't seem to happen that easily anymore. It seems like you got to write the script and sometimes even make the movie, and then it happens,
Well, you have done writing, you have done directing. So is this something that, you would like to have your hands in to that extent?
Well, okay, so the way I feel about it is this, like, I love to write almost as much as I love to act, or maybe they go like, like this sometimes,
Yeah.
and I'm pretty good at it. I think I'm a pretty good writer. And so there's a bunch of different things that are on my plate right now where I'm like, this is happening and this is lined up and I really need to sit down and write a script for it. And there was a little stretch because of sort of like just stress about life and trying to like make it all work. I got a couple of kids and, just,
Sure.
hitting it each month and,
Yep.
is tough. And other sort of personal issues. I couldn't sit down to write. I just couldn't focus. I couldn't do it. And so that's changed in the last like a month or so. And I'm writing a bunch now. And I have a couple other projects ahead of that, but I could see just being like, you know what, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to knock out a script, and that could change things if I did it that way.
For other creative types who might have picked up on that and heard you talk about, kind of hitting a roadblock in terms of writing, how do you get around that, man? Like, what's the process for you, when you encounter those kind of hurdles?
It's interesting. Lately I've found myself saying that I don't really believe in writer's block.
Right.
What I believe in is like life problems.
Yeah.
And so I think that for me, if I really need to write something, I can, like 90% of the time, if I sit down and do it, I can break through that, that thing. And there's just times where I think that's maybe what I'd say getting through it is, a couple of things. Actually, you know what? No, I just had to go through this. So like, this month ago that I started writing again. And what was going on for me was that I was going through a bunch of things. Me and my wife are getting divorced-ish. It's like we were, and then we weren't, and I think we are again, and that's hard.
Yep.
And
you sure?
And so I was like waking up in the morning, like just not knowing what to do with myself, just really just on edge and stuff. And I said, I got to take this time to write. Like I really need to force myself to sit down and write. And I think that's part of what it is when it gets to a point where there's no way forward anymore without writing
Right.
in some way,
Right. You got to sit yourself down and make yourself do it.
Yeah, exactly. And there's other times, of course, where I'm just inspired and I just do it. But, I've written enough for things that are like not technically artistic, like business writing and copywriting and things like that, where it's like you have a deadline, you do as good a job as you can. You get it done.
Right. Is the process hard that way though? Because I have a lot of musicians on here too. Is it easier when the spontaneity just kind of comes, or are you able to put that kind of structure on yourself and say, I'm going to sit down and really punch the clock and treat this like a job and sit here and write? Is it harder?
Yeah, I do think it's harder, but I think it's like it's sort of like maybe if I could use like a golf analogy. Not that I play that much golf, but just it's like it's like. Yeah, you can walk around with just a driver, or a 3-wood in your bag,
right.
And it feels great when you can do that. But sometimes you need a wedge, sometimes you need a 7-iron. It's like it's the job of writing to be able to bring it when you're not feeling it. I think basically, like acting in a way too. You're on set, like not every day you don't feel it every day. You're not feeling inspired every day.
Sure.
You feel insecure or, to take it back to Lost Boys, the day we shot the thing where we were like, that the Frog Brothers,
Yeah. Yep.
We couldn't get that. It was like the first day back from maybe a while after we had been filming in Santa Cruz and then we came back to LA. And it was like, I was all like wrapped up in life again, and I wasn't in that sort of zone of the movie, and we couldn't get it, and Joel was frustrated, and it's like sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it's just hard, and you got to just do whatever you can. I think.
Now, what is your relationship like with the former cast members? I know I've seen on YouTube, you guys get together, you do these panels or whatever, but I think people, always assume that they see people on movies or whatever, and there's this, long-lasting bond or something. How often do you see those guys? Who do you communicate with? Who are you still in touch with?
Cool. So, I was pretty much out of touch with everyone through my 20s. I was in New York. I was doing theater. And then at some point, Feldman and I got back in touch.
Yeah.
Feldman and I were the closest, we were closest of anybody else. I was closest.
Your brothers.
Yeah, exactly. We were brothers. And we felt that way. We still kind of do, And so And so Feldman came back, and then you know, in like 2005 we started doing conventions, and so that's when I saw Corey Haim again for the first time, you know, which was just like amazing, and I saw Brooke and Billy and Chance Corbett, you know, Laddie, and I think at that time that was that. But it was incredible to see these guys in adult life, because, you know, then they were like big kids and I was a little kid. I mean, kind of, you know, I was like 15, 16. They were like, you know, whatever, 20, you know, that was, they were adults, you know.
Right.
Now it's like we're basically the same age. So we got to know each other, and I got kind of over the hurdle of that. Brooke and Billy were just so cool. I couldn't even imagine like approaching them and being friends with them, you know, because they were just so cool, you know.
Right.
So I've gotten close with, so Corey and I have, like, you know, we hang out even not at conventions. Sometimes I'll go over to his place. We do cameos, the cameo videos sometimes together as Frog Brothers, you know, which is always fun. And so, you know, there's different things that bring us together, and it's just always great to see Corey. I think, you know, we always laugh, and it's like, you know, old buddies from camp, you know, at 16, except it wasn't camp, you know, it was a movie, you know. So, and then I would say I'm pretty close with like Billy and Chance and even Jason. I've been hanging out with him for the last maybe 5 years. I saw him at a convention for the first time then, and I've seen him outside of conventions. I've gotten together. His kid is a musician, a guitar player and singer, and so I've gone to see his band, you know, play, and so it's like, you know, it's like where his kid knows who I am, my kids know who he is. There's a kind of a family thing, you know. And I even said to Jason once when we got back in touch, I said, you know, it's gonna be hard for me not to like treat you as like this older brother, you know. And he was like, yeah, it's gonna be hard because I'm not gonna let you stop treating me that way.
Right.
Like, it was just really, really sweet. It's like we have that relationship. He was very big brotherly to us then, and, you know, so and then, you know, also talking about the Frog Brothers show, when the time is right, he really wants to help with that. He wants to help make that happen, or at least, you know, do what he can to help.
And I think the biggest success of Cobra Kai, you know, outside of getting, you know, obviously, you know, Ralph and Billy Zabka to reprise their roles, you know, they had a great, you know, they found a great cast of young actors. But what was really that I always saw it getting commended for was the writing and how slick the dialogue was, and how awesome it was. And there was those little Easter eggs and those nods to the actual movies and stuff. You know, it was great.
Yeah, that's great stuff. I mean, right now, that's what we all want, right? I mean, you know, Karate Kid's a movie that I'll watch. If it's on, I'll watch it.
Yeah.
You know? And so it's like the idea that we could extend that experience is so cool.
Right. You know? And as much as not taking anything away from Karate Kid, because it is certainly one of those movies synonymous with the 80s, man, but Lost Boys is every bit right there with it, if not even, maybe even has even a bigger cult following.
Thank you. I think of it like that, kind of, because people say that about Lost Boys when I'm at conventions. They say like, oh, you know, there was a time I watched this movie every day, or, you know, we would always get together on the weekend and watch this movie, you know. And so that's really cool. I just love that I'm in a movie like that I'm part of that experience, you know, for them. So, you know.
Now, you also did a TV movie way back when. People might not know, but I'd like to get your take on working with him, because his star was there and burned out so fast. But you were in a TV movie with River Phoenix.
Yeah. I loved working with River. I was just on for a day. You know, it was like the kind of thing where, so River and I were both up for this part. You know, back then he wasn't River yet. He was, I mean, he was River, but you know what I mean? He wasn't famous. And I hadn't done Lost Boys. We were just, you know, actors out on auditions, and, you know, and sometimes we would, I think I forget if I got to know him then or other kids I got to know, you know, from auditions and stuff. So we went out for this movie of the week, and they really liked us both. But they cast Tuesday Weld as the mom.
Okay.
And I was then, you can see, if you see the clips of that movie, it's out there, a clip of that movie, and certainly pictures too. I was really dark. My hair was like, it looked black. It was like really dark brown. And so just not realistic that I would be Tuesday Weld's kid.
Right.
So he got that part. And then they were like, but we like you, we're going to give you the part of the friend, And so it was just that one day, and River was the greatest guy. He was so awesome. I mean, it's similar to the Coreys in a way. River at the time, he wasn't famous, but he was working a lot. He was like one of those kids that was like, working project to project. You knew something was going to be up with him. He was just looked so cool and was so talented, So but it wasn't like that. He didn't act that way. He was just like we were just kids,
Yeah.
And I think that was part of the secret of it all, is that he and the Coreys, to an extent, I mean, it's different for the Coreys. You hear about difficult personal lives and things like that, and but it's like at the same time they were able to still have fun and be kids and treat other kids as kids, not as working partners,
Right.
And so that was just really great. And I was really sad when River passed, because I wanted to work with him again. We were actually in that little, if you find that little clip, if anybody's watching, they find that little clip. It was called, what was the name of it? If you remember, Circle of Violence, a family drama.
Yep.
Yeah. And so you can see, like, we had a good little thing, we were playing off each other really well. And I was like, especially as he was getting more and more famous, I was like, I'd like to kind of reprise that, see him again somewhere and be like, hey man, remember this, how awesome we were, you know what I mean? Like, that's how the business works, and because I just really liked him. I thought he was really good and super talented. So
are you able to tell, even at your young age, I don't know when an actor is really young, are you able to tell that, hey, there's something special, you know what I mean? Like, I can see, his trajectory going up, that this is a guy that has star quality?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's tricky as a kid. It's like you kind of maybe learn to notice markers, like the kids you're really jealous of, who really have it together. Like, like River, Keith Coogan was another one, Scott Grimes, I saw these guys, and it's like, if I could kind of gauge like who I was most threatened by, even though, that's lame, we're kids, but even kids in like high school or whatever go through that kind of feeling and threatened by other kids. Yeah, exactly. Competitive. So it's like, it's kind of natural. And, as long as you're nice about it, which we were, but it's like, I think that was probably the biggest marker. River was like, I liked being me, but I was like, if I could have been River, like, he just was there was something so magnetic about him. I think that's all I could really kind of place at the time.
What about, same question, like when you're talking about dealing with the two Coreys, you know what I mean? Like, were you able to tap into, hey, you know what I mean? Like, of course, by the time you work with them, no, that was their first movie together, right? As the two Coreys.
Yeah. I mean, so let me think about this. By the time I worked with them, I was already, I had seen Lucas. I loved Lucas, and so it's like when I looked at Corey Haim, it was hard to not think of him as already a star. When we worked together, it was this funny thing where he was like, hey, this and that, and he was being competitive with another actor, and he was like, and I think we're gonna make it, and I was like, what, have you not already made it? I mean, is that not what this is? Like, did you not make it already? But he wasn't thinking he'd made it, and I guess he hadn't. He was about to make it. Lost Boys was about to be his big bust out, But so that, and then Feldman, it was a little trickier with Feldman because Feldman was just a goofball, like in just a great way. He was just always kind of laughing and always up to something funny, and like just super like a class clown kind of thing, and there's something that's really magnetic about that as well.
Yeah.
Someone who's just kind of always ready to have a good time, but it isn't, he's just kind of, and funny. He's really quick with jokes and, kind of stuff, and, imitations of like, Pee Wee Herman or whatever at the time.
Right.
So I knew they were something special. I was also competitive with them, now that I think about it. I mean, I remember just being like, examining it, what was it about them? Why were they working all the time, kind of thing.
Right.
And
right.
you know, and it's also momentum too. It you know, these guys are special actors, but it's also that somebody along the line noticed that they were special, or a number of people did, and they were able to shape things in a certain direction. You know, there are
Yeah.
other people who may have similar kind of talent, similar kind of this or that, who weren't, you know, sold in the right way, you know, kind of thing.
Right.
So there's other factors like that also.
I think people associate the Lost Boys obviously like with the young ensemble that participate in the movie, but oftentimes a lot isn't talked about the adults in the movie. What was it like working with some of them? You mentioned Diane Wiest, of course, the late who played Max, or Ed Herman.
Ed Herman,
right?
right?
And then and I'm going to draw a blank on Grandpa there.
Bernard Hughes.
Yeah. So what was their vibe like on the set? Here they are working with all these young actors. I mean, did you guys kind of look at them in, you were talking about Jason Patrick in the older brother role? Did they kind of take on a parent / grandparent type role?
Yeah, they really did. I mean, it's not like they were taking care of us in that way. They were emotionally there for us kind of in that way, but it was, they're also working, they need to take care of themselves and stuff, but I did have that feel from them. They were really nurturing. They were incredible. Like, I mean, I got to know Bernard Hughes a little bit, but it was mostly, Ed Herman and Diane Wiest that I was in scenes with, and we would, find time where we're, talking to all of us, just asking advice of them, or, this and
right. Because
that.
at that point, Diane Wiest had won an Oscar.
She was up for an Oscar for Hannah and her sister, Hannah and her sisters.
Yeah.
So she won that before Lost Boys came out, but after we filmed it,
Yeah.
But it was amazing. Yeah, it was amazing, and to be working with someone of that caliber. Joel loved Diane. Like he loved Diane. He loved Woody Allen's work, and so and he also just grew to really love Diane. And they were just amazing. And I got to see. There's this story I've been telling a little bit sometimes about when I got to see Corey Haim and Diane Wiest rehearsing a scene together. The scene where he comes in on his bike to the video store, and there's your two pros. I mean, there's such pros working together, and Haim, the respect that he had for Diane Wiest and the ability they had to just play off each other and find the scene, do it over and over again until they sort of finding it. And what we saw on the screen, I got to watch them sort of develop that.
Right.
And it was just incredible. It was just incredible. She was so mentoring in that way.
What would you point at? You mentioned at the top of the interview, about being synonymous with Alan Frog. It is one of the more monumental things in your career. But is it what you would point at specifically, as your crowning moment, or the piece of work that you're most proud of? Because you've also written, acted, and directed your own short film as well. Yeah.
Okay. So after I did Lost Boys, I was sort of thinking like there was all this, like, oh, don't get typecast,
right.
And I'm also a creative person where I don't want to just rely on old things. I want to build. I want to, build to new stuff. I want to be creative and try to, take new shots, And so I didn't really embrace the Alan Frog part of my career, and it was detrimental in a way, because I was trying to build all this other stuff. I could have been doing both, actually. I didn't quite realize that. I was a kid, trying to figure it out. And so, for me, I did a lot of theater in New York and, in different spots around the country. And I'm not sure that there's one particular role that I would say like this was, the one, but there were a bunch where it was just an amazing feel, and I really felt like I nailed it in a way, and it was maybe a lot more content than Alan Frog, because it's a play and a lot more dialogue and things like that. And so I would love to include those, in my crowning achievements.
Sure.
I'm really still right now trying to find the next crowning achievement, the next next thing. I mean, in a way we all are. And it's like, I'm writing, I'm networking, sort of collaborating, trying to come up with something that's, that's like what we do, right? It's like, what's next? What are we looking for now? What's the world looking for now? What can we, what can I come up with that, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, as I said, I talked to a lot of musicians on here. Obviously, that the music industry has changed a lot. Streaming platforms, the record labels don't really exist anymore. What changes have you seen in the industry? And for people that might be watching this, who are maybe starting out their career, you raise a good point. What is the industry looking for? How do you get, how do you break down those doors? Like, what is the best way now? Do you write screenplays? Whose hands do you get them into? Like, for somebody that's young and wants to be a creative type, where do they start now?
Great question. And I think that it's changing a lot. And so I don't have a definitely do this, but I think that my answer comes from kind of what I'm trying to do, which is, look for what's happening. Look at who's spending the money. Where's the money coming from? Where's the money going to? There was a time when a television career was more possible than it is now. Now it's that career, it still exists, but it's for fewer people because there's, fewer opportunities right now,
right.
And so, but that's only in the current structure. People are still consuming media. People are still consuming, movies and TV and everything like that. So people are doing it somewhere and it's changing. So we have to kind of figure out where people are doing it. And one of the places that people are doing it is, in social media, the reels and things like that, like it or not, that's content. That's, and I think there are people that are monetizing that. They're, we all are to an extent. But, so I think that's part of the answer. And so, in virtual reality and augmented reality, that's going to start being, I think, a bigger and bigger factor.
Yeah.
And so I think what we have to do is just right now know that we don't know and just look for opportunities everywhere. Yeah. It's like, if you can write the screenplay, if you can act, if you can do reels, you want to do stupid little videos, that might be perfect.
Right.
I say that because my whole life I'm always thinking of stupid little videos, and it's like,
right.
I'm starting to be like, let me get an infrastructure going where I'll think of a stupid video, film it, put it up there.
Right. Yeah. Well, because I do hear musicians now talk about, and this, it's a little easier for them to do in their industry as opposed to the film industry, where where there are no labels, you can kind of make your music independently. You can put it on the streaming platforms. Maybe you don't have the backing and, maybe nobody listens to it or comes across it, but you can get it out there though. It's not that simple, just writing a screenplay and then, where do you go? How do you get it seen by people?
Right. And it's like, maybe, it's like there's a platform now. You can put something out there. It doesn't mean that it's gonna work.
Right.
But you might be able to make it work if you have enough followers. If you work with people who have a lot of followers, kind of thing. It's like there's something out there. There's money, there's success, there's projects that are going from that to being real projects, and the traditional channels aren't happening as much. So it's like being malleable, I think, being maybe that's not the right word, but being open and aggressive and hungry, I think.
Yeah. Now, do you like, what would you see the big glaring differences are, between movies and theater? Is there one that you prefer over the other?
Yeah. So my phone is running out of juice, so I'm going to unplug my end.
Yeah.
How's this audio? Can we put up with it for a second?
You're fine.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So when I was doing theater in New York, that was the end all be all for me. I thought theater was the best, and I loved theater. It's sort of like this, like, in a way, theater became less important than film, and now film's less important than TV.
Yeah.
And I think soon TV will be less important than like VR worlds and exploration of this kind of thing.
It's kind of becoming the platforms now. It really is.
Right. Yeah. And so Let me just see if this is actually.
I mean, it seems like cable television is really starting to become obsolete. People don't want to sit through commercials and advertisement anymore. Like now they can go to the platforms, so they can go to YouTube, or they can watch stuff uninterrupted nowadays. I mean, it's, I don't know. I mean, cable television seems like it's becoming almost an antiquated thing nowadays. I mean, you know, I'm not so sure people are watching TV, sitting through commercial breaks, doing all that stuff that we used to do. You know, I mean, when the family gathered around to watch TV at night, you know, I mean, like, I don't think people are watching TV and that way anymore.
Yeah, I wonder. I mean, definitely people are watching it in different ways. Like they're watching it. I know I'm watching it like throughout the day on my phone sometimes.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
People are binging it. My kids, you know, over the summer, like they just binge stuff like that. They all night long they were up.
Yeah.
You know, you know, and so yeah, things are changing in how people are consuming it. You know, so yeah.
Let me ask about another one of your projects. And where you are with it. Wikisoap.
Yeah, so Wikisoap, for the moment, Wikisoap is dead.
Okay.
And the reason it's dead is because I think that while it was a really cool idea, my execution wasn't good enough, and I'd love to revisit it. Is the concept clear, or should I sort of try to explain it?
Yeah, explain it to people that might not know. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I had this idea that, you know, it's like, you know, take a character like James Bond. It's different actors who play James Bond. And so, but how do you know it's James Bond? You know, because it's in the situation, you know. And so I thought, what if we have characters that all have a signature thing that they wear? You know, like the lead, that, you know, the head guy, you know, of the soap opera, he always wears Hawaiian shirts, you know. So you you know, so you always know. I think I'm going to plug my earbuds back in.
You're right.
Yeah, okay. So you always know that's that guy.
Right.
And then you know, and you know, his wife wears a red dress all the time. So anybody out there in the community can add to the soap opera. And so I had this little widget made where on the site you could, and the site's not up anymore, but on the site you could make a sequel or a prequel to any other episode out there. And then someone could make a sequel or a prequel to your episode. And it didn't have to go through anybody. You just uploaded it. So you could be these characters and add to this soap opera and do something crazy or stupid, or maybe even really cool, you know, and maybe even do your own arc of these characters, you know, and maybe I had this idea that like some other group might do their own arc of the characters. And then, you know, it kind of gets mixed up and then people start watching this, you know, kind of thing.
And so you're pulling the viewing audience into the creative process, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. We're saying, hey, you like the soap opera? You can be on the soap opera.
Yeah.
All you got to do is do this, you know?
Yeah.
And so I think that can really catch on, but it was hard for people to wrap their heads around, I think. And I think I also, if I'm going to do that, I think I need to work with like maybe 3 or 4 acting classes, or, you know, university, you know, departments or something like that, where people are gonna do it, you know, so that we start to get some content up there. And if we start to get some content up there, then, you know, maybe other people would be like, you know, want to join. As it stood, nobody was putting up videos.
You know? Right. Is there an answer to the question that people might ask who remember seeing you 1987 as Alan Frog? And of course, you've done other stuff, but there might be a certain demographic of people out there who might say, you know, since 1987, we haven't seen a lot of JAMISON NEWLANDER. You know what I mean? Like, you know, what would be the reason? What have you been, you know, in a broader spectrum? You know what I mean? Like, why have people not seen you more, you know, and they've seen everybody else in the Lost Boys? Maybe not everybody, but, you know, we've seen plenty of Kiefer Sutherland. We've seen plenty of Jason Patrick. We've seen plenty of the Coreys. Was it a conscious decision?
No, it was the fact that, so at that time, you know, Lost Boys was a big break for me.
Yeah.
They all had teams, you know, they all had, you know, Feldman's been in the business since he was 2. You know, Haim was already had a big machine behind him, you know, Jason Patrick, Jamie Gertz, Kiefer, everybody, you know, Alex Winter, everybody had this big, I mean, they had a team, they had publicists, they had a strategy, you know.
Right.
For me, I was this kid who got this big part. You know, I was getting parts and I got this big part. And I did my best to try to navigate that next phase, which is you're not just this kid who got this part, you're not just this kid auditioning for parts. You're now a bit of a celebrity, and how do you work that? How do you play with that? How do you build projects off of that? I didn't really know how to do that. And so pretty quickly after Lost Boys came out, it didn't look like it was going to be this career like big thing, because it didn't do as well as they thought. It did well, and eventually it did amazing on video, but at the time it wasn't like, okay, this is it, everybody's wanting you to do their next movie. I wasn't getting those kinds of offers. And so I was like, you know what, let me go to college. I was always meaning to go to college. Let me go to I'll go to NYU. I'll act in New York, I'll do theater. And then, I'll also, and I thought that would kind of work. But really what happened is that, the film moved on, the film world moved on. I wasn't there. I was doing theater. It was great for me, as an artist, I did some really cool stuff, I think. But in terms of advancing that side, nobody saw me for 15 years after that, and for me, I was building a career, and I was maybe thinking, I'll come back to Hollywood as,
right.
this theater actor, which, maybe could work under certain circumstances, but it didn't work in my case. And I ended up coming back to LA in the 2000s, early 2000s, and it was like starting over, kind of. It was
are there any regrets? Like, do you all of a sudden, like, suddenly the Lost Boys gets big, maybe even like a year later, 1988 or whatever, or whatever, do you start to say, wow, this movie has really picked up a lot of traction. I've got to put people around me. I've got to get a team. I've got to capitalize on the success of this. Or was that not in your head at the time?
Yeah, it just wasn't how my mind was operating at the time. It was like I was 17, 18, 19. I was also a kind of a young 17, 18, 19. Not like super young, but my brain was still developing and stuff. And
sure.
And I thought of that stuff all the time. Also, freshman year of college, I was auditioning. I got really close on Dead Poets Society.
Okay.
And there are things like that and other parts where, hey, if I'd have gotten that would have been the next thing, and then I would have been a big star. So there's regrets in terms of choices I made. I made some good choices. I made some choices that didn't help me, as we talked about, and other choices that didn't help me. I was also really overly competitive then, because, as I think we talked about that a little bit, about the being competitive.
Yeah.
It was a time as other people's careers were building and mine wasn't. It's hard. It hurts, and I got overly competitive. I started to be like, I'm this actor, I'm doing theater,
right.
I don't know that you necessarily some people saw that in me,
right.
I don't know that you necessarily would have seen that if you, knew me at the time, but that kind of thing got in my way. I didn't really know how to build a real network. I was figuring that out. I was, if you imagine yourself at like 16, 17, and then, into college, like, a lot of people know what they're doing, but a lot of people don't.
Right. Yeah. You're right. And so when you look back on that time, though, do you have more regret about not pushing harder in your career, or are you in some ways happy because you do see a lot of not very well adjusted child actors? A lot of pitfalls and personal trials affected the Coreys. We see it happen with a lot of people. River Phoenix, who we mentioned. Do you think you could have ran into those kind of problems, or do you have a better head on your shoulders to run into that? Well, I guess that can plague anybody.
Yeah, I think that I took solace in that for a long time, actually, being like, maybe I dodged a bullet here. Yeah, like River dies,
Yeah.
And these guys, hit some hard times with, addiction and stuff. And, and so I did take solace in that. And I also have to say this. I also have to say that, like, I have a, on a personal level, like, really, while I've had struggles, I have these amazing kids, I have two boys.
Yep.
And when I say amazing, like, they're not like Olympic athletes. They're just my kids, and they're awesome,
They're amazing. Yeah, they're amazing because they are your kids. I know.
Yeah.
yeah, I'm a parent too. They can't do anything wrong.
Yeah, you know how it goes.
And then sometimes they're doing everything wrong.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel grateful about that.
Yeah.
And you know what, a lot of days, most days, I got to pick them up at school. A lot of times drove them to school. I was not, there was no paparazzi following me,
Right.
I got to really be a dad. I got to be a person, that's kind of what I think that I've been able to do. Even as a teenager, I was a kid. I did Lost Boys, but then I went back to high school, and I was in the high school play, and I got that kind of stuff. And they didn't get that. The Coreys didn't get that. They got other stuff, and there was a time, when I was feeling competitive where I was like, yeah, well, that makes me better, or, had those moments. And of course, that's a trap, because it doesn't make me better. I fell into my own kind of problems with this and that, and codependency, and, maybe even a little brush with addiction. It's like, so I think that, where I draw comfort from when I do feel those regrets and those, like, nobody likes to miss opportunity. And I did kind of miss an opportunity to become really big. But where I take solace is, I could get emotional about this.
Yeah.
Is that I was just a kid. Like, and I saw these kids, this kid in Lucas and this kid in Goonies, and, and I wanted to do it. I did it. And I did it. I got to a really big movie, and I'm still at it. I still, it's like a lot of actors, they have this story and then they get this other big part, a big series, or, film franchise or whatever. And that's kind of what I'm aiming for now, is I'd like to get something like that, where that's what you know me for, and all the other stuff was history. But for now, what I can be grateful for is that I was in a great movie, and I was in other stuff, but Lost Boys was a really special thing to be a part of, and I feel grateful for that. And
so when do you get to the point, like when you talked about early on worrying about being typecasted, but do you remember the moment, later in life, like when you start to say, all right, I'm synonymous with this role, I'm going to lean into it, I'm going to embrace it, I'm going to do the conventions, I am Alan Frog, you just made a great point. I was in a great movie, I'm going to embrace this.
Yeah, I think at some point doing the conventions are a little tricky at first, because, you're like, I'm over there and people asking for my autograph, and I'm not used to that. I don't get recognized on the street, and so how do you deal with that? And, and everything. So at some point I got a groove with it, and I kind of realized what this meant to people and what it means to me, and how we're both kind of, we're getting some, benefit and enjoyment out of this.
Yeah.
And I think also when I've gone in and out of other careers, and when I left I had a corporate job as a copywriter, and that ended around 2021. And so at that time I was like, let's just do this. Let's be Alan Frog. Let me try to get in some other horror movies. Which I was already sort of doing, let me try to get parts wherever I can, and let's do this.
Right.
So,
because it does seem like sometimes, man, like people don't want to be synonymous with those roles. And obviously, it is easy to get typecast, extremely easy. Right. I mean,
yeah, I mean, right now I don't really care. And I kind of wished at the time, I wish in looking back that I didn't really care then, because what does it really matter? I mean, look at, like, Michael J. Fox, like, Michael J. Fox had an awesome career, and he was doing pretty much the same thing, but it was great, And, then you look at someone who's more diverse, like a Meryl Streep, like, well, that's what she does, and that's great, that's cool and everything. And she's not typecast because she can do all this different stuff, but almost everybody else is typecast to an extent. And I think it's fine. For me, I have no problem with it anymore.
And what is typecast anyway? Like, I think when someone thinks of an actor, they automatically go to a role that resonated the most with them. You know what I mean? Like maybe Kiefer Sutherland, to a lot of people, he is David, or he's Jack Bauer from 24. But I mean, in everybody's mind, they instantly revert to, the one that they see them the most as.
Yeah, totally. And there's like a role that someone does that our way into that person, and then we care about that person,
Yeah.
and it extends to the actor, and beyond just the role,
Yeah.
it seems like.
Now, do you think that obviously the two Coreys started on the Lost Boys? Do you think their history in working together was a good thing, or ultimately maybe worked against them?
That's a great question.
Obviously, they had a lot of success.
Yeah, I mean, I think that something got out of hand. I wasn't there for that part of it where things really got out of hand for them.
Yeah.
And I don't know that it was their relationship. I think that it was just them. I mean, would Corey Haim, if he never met Corey Feldman, would he have just stayed on a more like, I'm an actor, and be on more of like a River Phoenix path? I mean, interestingly, River Phoenix,
Yep.
but that was sort of a freak thing that happened, to River. I don't know. It's hard for me to speculate. I think that they were good for each other at times, and I saw them also be bad for each other. Maybe it's the shortest answer.
What did you think about the two Coreys, the actual reality show? Obviously, like, you popped up in it a couple of times.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, it's funny because originally it was sort of a scripted show. It wasn't, and I think people didn't really fully grasp that. It was hard to sort of grasp that this wasn't actual reality going on. It was like before reality kind of changed, or everybody kind of was like, oh, okay, that's not reality.
Right.
So it was interesting. I mean, I enjoyed it because, when the whole thing was percolating and coming alive, and Lost Boys, the second Lost Boys movie, and then, and we're going to be in that maybe, and then all that stuff was fun, and so it was fun hanging out with the Coreys. It was, I could see the strife. The strife was always, at that point, the strife was always there.
It was evident. Yeah, it was evident. And do you think Corey Haim at times, rest in peace, the late great Corey Haim, it seemed at times though that you talk about typecasting, he seemed like he really had his had his hooks into that character, and almost seemed like he couldn't let it go, and that character resonated with him the most, and he almost seemed like he wanted to lean into it and almost be typecast in that role, even though he was so versatile and could do other things. He was really hell-bent on like reprising that role, it seemed like.
Interesting. Yeah, you mean that sort of cocky, that thing that he was in Lost Boys sort of thing. Yeah, that he did end up doing that in the other movies and stuff.
I kind of got the sense in the series though that even when he came to stay with Feldman, he was really, really hell bent on wanting to get really wanting to get the sequel up and going. And I don't know if Feldman was matching that same intensity. Obviously, Feldman has eggs in a lot of different baskets or whatever. So I mean, he's into a lot of different things. I don't know if it meant as much to him.
Yeah, I mean, Feldman had a more kind of traditional sort of life. He was married and he had a kid. I think they had already had Zen at that point. Yeah, and so even though he was, there's all kinds of tumultuous stuff that happens in his life, he had a little bit more of like, he kind of had it together a little bit more than Haim did at the time. Haim was really just starting to get it together, in my perception at the time. And I thought he did effectively get it together. But it was started a little bit later, so I think, what was the question?
Just that he just seemed like it seemed like certain people were more into reprising those Lost Boys roles than other. And Haim really seemed like one of those ones that was really, he seemed like he brought up the most in that series about, really trying to light the fire under Feldman. Let's get this thing written. And I'm not sure. Yeah. I'm not sure if Feldman was there with him in terms of it being as much of a priority.
Yeah, I think that that might have been sort of part of the scripting, because for both of them, well, okay, so by that time Feldman had done Surreal Life. Remember that? So he was already kind of back, that it wasn't like a glorious back yet. He's right. His presence, his everything grew more and more, since then. And so Haim was not back, and so I think there was that power difference where Feldman had stuff going on, and he did want to do Lost Boys 2, but he was a little bit more like, it's part of this strategy and this. For him, that's really all he had going on at that time.
What did you think about his tactic? I know it was mentioned in the series, as a fellow actor yourself, when Haim wanted to get back and wanted Hollywood to know that he was back. I know there was one episode where they mentioned where he took out an ad in one of those big papers out there, kind of letting Hollywood know, I'm back, I'm focused, I'm clean, I want to work or whatever. But what did you think of taking that approach? And what's the paper that I'm thinking of? Like, what's the big one out there that everybody?
He's talking about the big, like the Hollywood Reporter.
Yes, I think that's what it was. Yeah. He takes out the full page ad, and he just kind of like announces that, I'm back. I know I burned some bridges or whatever, but I'm trying to make amends, and I'm trying to get back into the swing of things.
Yeah, I didn't remember that he did that, but I like that approach. I mean, I think that's a good approach, and I think that. While I don't know that it worked immediately, I think it helped a little bit. And I think by the time he died, sadly, he was kind of primed for a project. Yeah, for a project that would be like, wow. Yeah. Be like, oh wow, Corey Haim, he's back. If he got some show or some new movie that did great on the first weekend, he'd be back.
Right. So if people want to tap in with you and keep up with your journey and keep track, I know everyone is out there on social media in some way, shape, or form. We all have to be out there, I guess. Where's the best place to tap in if people want to keep up with you and what projects you may have going and what you're doing?
Cool. Yeah. So I'm on Instagram. That's like the biggest thing I do. I also do TikTok. I haven't done it as much, but I got to keep that up. And so that's pretty much Instagram. If you follow me on Instagram, you'll pretty much be able to keep up with the things I'm doing. And then I have a website, but I didn't pay the thing, and so I have to get it back up. But it's normally JAMISONNEWLANDER.com. In another like few weeks, you'll be able to get back to it. JAMISONNEWLANDER.com is just sort of like my website, and I kind of put things up there, kind of thing.
Well, I think the thing that's most exciting, that was mentioned in this interview is, and I do love the idea, and I hope you do see it all the way through, because I could see a Lost Boys series now in present time, done in the style of a Cobra Kai.
Totally,
it's absolutely huge.
Yeah, if you think about it, and fans out there also think about like how to help. I might get like try to do like a video. People do like 30 seconds or a minute of why they think it would be cool. Maybe we'll send that to the studio or something. Yeah. Might try to do something like that. So yeah. I agree. I would love that project to happen.
Yeah, because I'm not sure if the cast is even aware, and I'm sure you guys see people show out at the conventions and all that stuff, and I'm sure you guys know that that there's a lot of popularity there. But I'm not even so sure you guys even know how huge that movie is. I mean, I constantly see like new merchandise coming out with the vampires on there. I mean, it really has resonated with the audience, and it really is one of those movies that has just like really stood the test of time.
Totally. I appreciate that. I'm honored, and I see that. I'm seeing that too, but it's always nice to hear. Yeah.
And again, I think the main important part is just the writing, the dialogue, just making it really slick and making it really hip and modern. And, I think that's what they did. I always heard in interviews, Ralph Macchio and Billy Zabka always talk about, how great this writing team was with Cobra Kai, how great the writing was. That's what made the whole show. That's what made the whole show,
Yeah, it's amazing what, the subtle difference that you can't tell because you didn't see it written another way, but that it's like that good writing can make such a great difference in something.
Yeah. Well, I'm happy we got a chance to do this, man. I always love catching up and talking to you, man. Really.
Yeah, me too.
And stay in touch. We'll definitely do this again somewhere down the road. And if the project gets up and going and gets legs, well, I'd love to have you back on and talk about it, man.
Yeah, that'd be great. Let's hope that happens.
All right. Good talking to you, Jamison. Thank you, buddy.
Good talking, man. Yeah,
all right. Later. Right. And there he goes, folks. JAMISON NEWLANDER, a.k.a. Alan Frog. And I'm not going to give him another a.k.a. because he's leaned into it. He's okay with being Alan Frog. And why the hell not? I'm an 80s kid. When I see him, I see Alan Frog. So, boom. There it is right there. Another great conversation with JAMISON NEWLANDER. Everybody and anybody remembers him from 1987's The Lost Boys. If you didn't see that movie, you automatically get your... I don't know. You automatically get your something revoked. I don't know. If you're an 80s kid, you didn't see that movie, you definitely get your privileges revoked. How dare you? How dare you? And immediately run to your television set and find The Lost Boys on whatever platform it may be playing. If you have to buy it, it is criminal to call yourself a child of the 80s and have not seen The Lost Boys. I don't know if there's anybody out there who hasn't, but well, actually, I'm sure there's people out there who haven't, but shame on you. So that is the great Jamison Newlander, and he has been in other things. Again, we talked about it in the interview. I don't want to just pigeonhole him. He's had done other projects. He's acted, written, and directed his own short film. So a very talented, a very creative guy. And what I really honed in on right there is how excited I am to hear anything percolating in the Lost Boys world. And I think, and this is just one man's opinion here, I think that if we could get some kind of a groundswell going where the public was really clamoring for a Lost Boys, some type of a series done here in modern times, a la Cobra Kai, it would be huge. And I will stand by that statement because I know for a fact it would be. I guess putting them side by side, Karate Kid and The Lost Boys, both of them huge, impactful 80s movies. But I think they're pretty much running neck and neck. They both have their, they both have their cult following. They both have their plugged-in audience. They both have their people who love those movies. But the good thing is that I think there's a crossover right there. I think even though they're two different genres, one is kind of like a sports, movie. The other one is a little darker, dealing with vampires. But they're both synonymous with the 80s. So I don't think people look at them and say, oh, here's one with a kid getting bullied. I don't think people so much look at the storyline as they just look at it, both movies as a snapshot, a portrait in time. So I think the fact that they both came out of the 80s, and obviously people just love anything synonymous with the 80s. I lived through it. I remember most of it, but if you remembered all of it, then you weren't really there. I mean, so come on. I was certainly doing my fair share of partying back in the 80s. But listen, it was a fun time. It was a decade of decadence. The world was in a good place at that point in time. The economy was rolling. Movies were fantastic. Fashion was great. Music was amazing. So I think anything that comes out of the 80s, immediately there's a buzz around it. If anything is done here now in modern times. And I don't think a project synonymous with the Lost Boys would be any different. I think it would really, really grow legs extremely quickly. So I really hope that's a project that Jamison can get off the ground. I would encourage him to start writing that, come up with ideas, find other people who want to, get their hands in there. Listen, maybe I'll start writing some Lost Boys stuff. Why not? I think Jamison would be receptive to some good ideas. Listen, I don't even want any credit. All I want to see is the Lost Boys in some way, shape, or form in 2025. Listen, it does my heart good to see anything that was huge in the 80s come back around full circle. And I think it's that way for anybody who lived in a specific period of time. My parents, look back on the 60s with some type of fondness, or the older generation looks back on, the roaring 20s, or, everybody has their era. And for us 40 and 50 and 60 somethings, the 80s was that era. So that being said, listen, fingers crossed if we can get something. And I know, obviously, as he mentioned, you won't get everybody on board, but even if it was like a look into the lives of the Frog Brothers, circa 2025, and hunting down, vampires today, maybe some Easter eggs, maybe some nods to the past, maybe some cameos by some of the, especially if it picked up legs. There was a lot of people who said that, you won't be able to get this one and that one from the Karate Kid. Slowly but surely, they all started popping in there, though. The Cobra Kai guys, and then suddenly we saw Daniel's girlfriend there. Elizabeth Shue started to pop in, and then Chosen from Karate Kid 2, his nemesis from Okinawa. So we started to see everybody started to, once it picked up momentum, everybody very much wanted to jump on board and be a part of it and get their hands in there. So And I think you'd probably find that with the Lost Boys. So listen, I wish him a lot of luck. And I always love talking with Jamison, man. Really one of the good guys, in the industry. So again, enjoyed that conversation. Make sure to tap into Off the Couch Boxing and Pod Scum, both podcasts, one Facebook page. Here you tapped into an episode of Pod Scum, but you can get updates on both podcasts. I will not have a separate Facebook for both of them. Don't have the time to carry two separate Facebooks. So you get what you get, both of my podcasts, and you get all your updates and your news and your information on them on one Facebook page. So the Facebook page is Off the Couch Boxing and Pod Scum. Follow us there for updates on new episodes when they're dropping, who will be on those episodes, and any other big news, whether it's going on in the boxing world or the music, arts, and entertainment world. If it's on my radar, if it's popping off and it's something that's newsworthy, I will put it up there. You guys will be kept in the loop and kept informed. And of course, if you're watching right now, please make sure to like, subscribe, and smash that notification bell to stay tapped in. If you dig what we do, there's plenty of stuff on the channel. We are north of 280 episodes of Off the Couch Boxing, and we are north of 300 episodes of Pod Scum, which is absolutely crazy that I have done nearly 600 total podcast episodes. And again, want to thank the viewers, want to thank the subscribers, and most importantly, want to thank my guests, without whom I would not be able to do this. So my sincere gratitude to everybody involved. And again, thanks for tuning in, man. And it's your boy, Reckless Rexx, reminding you to take it easy and keep it sleazy.